Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the live show, for lack of term better, podcast live hangout with you folks on Filmmaker IQ on the YouTube's channel. Welcome. Okay, so I generally put a topic at the top here. If you're new to this adventure here, I'll usually put a topic and then I'll answer your questions and we'll just chat and hang out for a little bit. It is very hot in the studio. Very hot, so please appreciate the sacrifices I'm making. I will probably have to wash this shirt because it'll be drenched in sweat. And those of you probably like, hey, that looks, what do you expect, fat dude? Well, you're not far from wrong. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I think the audio is working. I believe so. Yep, looks like the audio levels are checking out. All right, so my topic today was going to talk about She-Hulk, because I think it's a rather interesting what's going on with the phenomenon on She-Hulk. Part of their marketing strategy, at least on IMDb, is they posted this clip from She-Hulk where the character, and forgive me, I don't know all the names of the character, Jessica Walker, right? Is that the main character's name? How you doing, Hype Engine? I think we'll kind of get to what you were saying. I'll read your comment in a second as we go through it. That they're kind of... Actually, you know what? Your comment's just exactly what I'm kind of leaning on to. Let's just put it up there. She-Hulk, I don't understand what everyone is offended with the Bruce and Jen bonded and fought, and they had their drinks family. The right-wing media has been very much going off after She-Hulk, calling it kind of woke, calling it hyper messaging about... Basically, this is one clip where Jessica Walker says, to the Hulk, it's like, I'm a woman. Like, I get mansplained every day. I get catcalled. I control my anger 1,000 times better than you, Hulk. Like, I know what I'm doing. And the media, at least the right-wing commentary, has been kind of saying, well, see, look at this. This is an example of them forcing this political message. What I think is missing, however, is that's always the first act. In fact, it's almost... Now, I could be completely wrong. That they are going to make this show very, very much of a women power. Women are better than men, and they could marry Sue and make her the perfect character, and there's absolutely no flaws about her. However, I just have a stinking suspicion, maybe because I've been around movies and stories long enough, that whenever you have a character that presents as a highly arrogant, almost arrogant, like I know what I'm doing better than you, even though I haven't experienced this challenge than you, the obvious route of that story is to then have them face challenges in which they will need to learn humility, and to come back from it's like, okay, Bruce Banner, you've obviously gone through a lot being the Hulk. I have some things I can learn from you as well. At least that's what I'm taking my understanding of how all these stories go. Pride goeth before the fall is always the point. So my take on the She-Hulk was, I think it's actually enjoyable. I mean, it's enjoyable in that it feels like a kind of a lower tiered television show. That it's not particularly high dollar, high production value show. The character that plays Jessica Walker, she comes off with a nice kind of a girl next door charm. She has a lot of charm and a lot of just has a presence about her that's very. I enjoy it. I enjoyed watching it, but I'd stick around and see more of the shows. Now I could be completely wrong. They could just make it out that she's just the better version of the Hulk. And women are perfect and men are crap. They could be doing that. They absolutely could. I just don't see it from the trajectory of where I'm seeing this show start. I feel like what they're going to do is throw a bunch of challenges at her, which she must overcome. And I think, that's just the basic storytelling. That's storytelling. It's the same thing with the Doctor Strange movie. If you go back, Doctor Strange is an insufferable prick at the very beginning of the Doctor Strange movie. He has to learn to kind of realize what his limitations are. I feel like that's going to happen in this show. Adele Razier says all the Marvel Phase 4 is about that men are bad, but if they're not the minority, women are amazing and better than the male counterpart and immediately better. I mean, I haven't been watching Phase 4, so I don't know. I'm just saying that whenever you present a character right off the bat as being perfect in every way, well, I guess except for Mary Poppins, but whenever you present a character like that, it seems to me like that's usually the pride before the fall archetype. That's what you should expect to coming out. Again, so I've been involved with doing Ragtime, the musical. I'll be honest, like there is some really shallow reading of these stories. I think being part of the Ragtime the musical, listening to some of the audience responses to some of what's going on stage, I kind of feel like audiences these days have just a shallow reading of everything. And Ragtime itself, the book, is probably one of the great works of literature of the 20th century, American literature, and I don't know. Audiences these days just want to go for super simple and superficial understandings of all these stories, and they never want to take a little deeper look into something. And I think, well, going back to She-Hulk, I feel like She-Hulk might be, they take that one clip out of context where she's, it's kind of a woman power. Yay, woman, I am woman, hear me roar, I can control my anger. But can she? I mean, she maybe has some ability to control it, but in the long run, is that not pride? Especially with something like the Hulk. If the Hulk is about internal demons, the anger, and it might be something worth exploring there. Could be completely wrong. Could be made a fool here. Come back in 3 weeks and find out that nope, John was completely wrong. He was trying to read way too much into this story as much more thoughtful than it was. Completely wrong, but I don't know. That's where I feel like we're gonna come from. Again, and also She-Hulk is actually the first Phase 4 Marvel show I even bothered watching. So who knows? Count for comment. I don't care about American comic books and whatever controversies they produce when they go the way of the blockbuster biblical movies in the 50s and 60s, and maybe the way of the Western too. Though I was watching Red Letter Media talk about Good, Bad, and the Ugly. That was pretty good. Hype Engine writes, she will face challenges and ask Bruce for advice. They will be closer. It's basic hero mentor, except their family. I think you're right. Although I think maybe the Hulk might not come back so much. He'll probably be back because, he has to be back. But I think maybe they don't want to pay for him. I think you gotta I think he'll be in one episode. Maybe toward the end of the episode, he'll get another comeback. But that's the way I think it's going to go. I think the right-leaning media has been a little too quick to judge on this one. Again, if you're left-wing, and I got in trouble because I guess I have I'm a right-leaning commentator, I guess, if you want to consider it that way. But people were kind of going after me, or the people who were on my YouTube suggest playlist. Like, all right, whatever. But I think you got to slow down and just take a look at it. Saul Goodman said, didn't enjoy it personally. I'm only 14. I'd rather spend my time discovering new and innovative stuff from interesting directors instead of watching this same old. If you're 14, you've got a world to explore, buddy. So don't feel bad about not wanting to watch She-Hulk because, I put it on because I figured, it's like 11 o'clock at night. I don't want to watch a full movie, but I don't know what shows I want to watch. So I just figured, let's just try this and see what I think about it. John, something weird happened to stream. I was on stream titled Christmas Hangout. I wasn't seeing the comments. I had to click on the stream to see the comments. Is it coming to Christmas Hangout? Because it's not Christmas time. Is that what it's showing? I hope not. Sometimes YouTube is just being weird. Let's see. Let's click. Or maybe YouTube just sent out some notifications for an older version. Oh yeah, you're right. It's saying my Christmas chill stream. That's bizarre. Well, let's see if I can do anything about that. Maybe I don't think I want to do anything right now because that might kill something. I don't know what the hell's going on. Good old YouTube. Let's click on manage. Maybe that'll help me. Let's see. Exiting will not end the stream if currently live. The stream can be accessed again. Okay, let's go. Let's see if that works. Let's see if I don't kill myself. Yeah, let's see. Why is it streaming? Let's just delete that one. Yes, I understand. Bye-bye. All right. I think we should be back on here now. All right. How you doing, Rick? All right, let's go have... Yeah, both of them are going for some strange reason. Well, I just deleted the other one, so maybe knock on wood. Yes, Rick A says, I watched She-Hulk, wasn't great, wasn't horrible. Give it a few more weeks. I agree. I mean, I enjoyed it because it was, it was pleasant and not boring. Not terribly boring. Yeah. People need some ammo for agendas, clips being taken out of context. And I don't think it's even clips being taken out of context. It's basically clips you're affirming what you already believe. And it worked for both ways, too. It works for people that are like the right-wing media who's like, look what Disney, these bunch of G words, I don't think I'm allowed to say it online, right? Bunch of G words, and look what they're promoting, this stupid thing. And the other side's like, oh yeah, look, women are so much better than men. Look how much better we are than men. Like, anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you, including controlling my anger. When neither approach is actually the reality of what's going on here. It's just what confirms your own biases. Either way. Which is weird. Yeah, I'm sorry about the dual streams. I don't know what. You know how YouTube is. YouTube's a wonderful, amazing technology that hardly ever works the way it's supposed to. I should watch the latest video of the YouTuber Baggage Claim about the Marvel Phase 4. I'm checking out. I haven't seen anything from Baggage Claim 4. Oh, Jack D. Ripper. I'm a fan of your work, says Rick. Are you in London or branching out? I thought he was a streamer. Jack D. Ripper. Yeah, so I watched She-Hulk. I thought it wasn't bad. I thought it wasn't, I enjoyed it. I want to see more and just see what happens. Could be cute. Then I watched the new Game of Thrones prequel. And what is it called? The Song of Dragons or something like that? Dragon something or another. And I thought, it's pretty good. I don't... It's not like a must-see television thing, but, I'm sort of in a dearth of things to watch. Because I get home from I do a musical right now. I've been doing musicals every weekend, starting on Wednesdays through the weekend. And I get home about 11:30, and I'm wired. Because you do a musical, you're like fully pepped. I'm doing Ragtime, and Ragtime is a terribly, I'm using the word terrible in a sort of a negative way, a terribly dense musical that requires your almost constant attention for about 2.5 hours. Because the music it's literally almost an opera in that there are a couple dialogue scenes, but it's just you're constantly trying to figure out where you are in the score. And the score is really bad because originally the whole thing was super long. They started cutting it, but making informal cuts, and now it's so many cuts it's confusing as hell. And none of the other shows I've done this year have anything as insanely cut up as Ragtime. So, the music is fantastic. To be honest, the show is probably too long. It's just, you could trim off a half an hour of the show, it would be better. But anyway, I get home about 11:30, I'm wired. I want to watch something, but I know I'm not going to make it through a movie. So I need to watch something that's like an hour or less. And that's what I'm trying to find things to watch. And I was watching if you're into, I'm not a diehard Game of Thrones fan. I definitely liked Game of Thrones a lot. And I think this is, it's passable. It's pretty good. I just kind of hate that Matt Walker, is that his name? I'm trying to remember the guy's name that plays Damien Targaryen. He's the former Doctor Who, one of the Doctor Who's. But I saw that movie, what's the name of that movie? Last Night in Soho, which is a really pretty good movie for the first, I think, 2/3. And the last third, it gets a little weird. Well, I guess not weird, but it gets a little ham-fisted. Is that his name? Matt Smith. Thank you, Rick H. Matt Smith. Every time I see Matt Smith on screen, I kind of want to hate him now. Like, he's got that face that you just like, he's the perfect freaking, villain's face. It's weird. I'm never a Doctor Who fan. I never watched any Doctor Who, so, I don't know. I don't see how he could ever play the good guy. He just seems like a prick. I'm sorry. He's probably a lovely man. But, anyway, House of Dragon. Yeah, House of Dragon. There it is, Rick. Yeah, I liked it. I just feel like, I feel like the Matt Smith character is like, well, okay, he's definitely the baddie. So, and then everyone else, I digged it. Let's just put it that way. I'll keep watching for it. I'm not. It's not Die Hard like I gotta watch it the day it comes out, but I'll keep watching for it. Let's go back to some older comments. Account for Comment says, I am watching a Japanese TV drama about a woman working as a bank executive by day, a prostitute by night. The story is about sexism, loneliness, and nothing empowering, nor preaching. Interesting. I wish I could be a prostitute by night. Never mind. No, that's just male privilege. It's me and my male privilege. All right, I stopped watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe after WandaVision because WandaVision emotionally broke me in so many ways. Yeah, WandaVision was a very interesting, exceptionally different in that the WandaVision feels like it substantially matters in the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And people that are not interested in Marvel are probably like, what the hell are you talking about, John? You know, it actually establishes Wanda's character as more villainous than I think people were, more villainous than people that didn't know anything about the background of the books and all that were ready to accept. And I feel like that's the show that you kind of had to watch WandaVision in order to understand what the rest of the cinematic universe is going for, especially the Doctor Strange stuff. But none of the other cinematic shows feel like they have any weight whatsoever. Like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, do you have to watch that? Probably not, right? Loki, do we have to watch that to understand what's going on next? I don't know. But again, I haven't watched a Marvel Cinematic movie since, well, I saw Doctor Strange. That was the only one I watched as recently. I prefer, comments says, I prefer that kind of character studies. Taking moral message out of fictional series is like taking sexual lessons from a porno. Good point. In my opinion, it might be just spice up your life, but it likely broke your marriage. Oh, okay, for being the prostitute at night, or? But I agree with your first statement that taking the moral message out of fiction, that's kind of the thing. So one of the other orchestra members commented to me about like the ragtime musical, and like, what's the message? You know, did you not learn the message of the musical? He's talking about somebody else, and I'm just like, I'm not sure there is a message in something like this. If you are familiar with the E.L. Doctorow original text or book, I don't think there is a message. It's more of like, what's the message of The Godfather? I don't think there is a message. You know, it's like, oh, crime is bad. I guess, I mean, if you want to boil it to simplistic terms. But I think maybe great literature, great art doesn't necessarily have a message. It more causes you to reflect on life and reflect on the complexities of life and the complexities of reality in a way that you may not be able to quite do in reality. Like sometimes we can talk about the politics of Game of Thrones in a way that we can't talk about the politics of your government and the American government or any government, right? We don't allow ourselves that kind of, if we create a separate world kind of to separate it and become kind of, it's what I'm always afraid of making things like super analogous, you know, like, oh, you know, the House Targaryen represents the Bulldog Democrats, and you know, no. If you start doing that, then it becomes too simplistic. I don't know. I'm just kind of waxing poetically at this point, or not even waxing poetic, waxing kind of like a madman. I haven't thought this through all the way through, obviously. But anyways, that's what I feel like. You know, movies and stories have the power to allow us to discuss headier and deeper ideas, but without the burdensome of reality. And then the counter argument would be, but they are analogies to the reality. And I would say, well, you know, but yes and no. I mean, if you're making it too simple, if it's all about us and them, I don't know. I just don't think it's a great thought-provoking art. That's where I'm going with that, at least. You probably are typing out furiously how wrong and terribly evil I am. Yeah, Matt Walker is a very good baddie. Yeah, he was just an evil person in Last Night in Soho. Like, he comes off so charming in the beginning, but he becomes such a dark character. Last Night in Soho, again, was a pretty good movie. It's just the last one feels a little too Suspiria, a little too, like, horror film. I'm waiting for Warner Brothers to finally and utterly collapse, just to scare Disney into firing J.J. Abrams and his crew and taking a break from making safe, mindless pablum. Well, I mean, think of it this way. I don't think you lose. Well, no, you can. I don't think. I've been saying this on this live streams for a while now, that Disney is not in a safe place right now. Disney is probably in the most dangerous part of their business because they are the biggest. They have them, and they have so much they can lose. Somebody on the last stream commented that yes, Disney Plus is now the largest streaming service on the planet. It surpassed Netflix in the first quarter, I believe, right? But the fact of the matter is that growth has their Disney Plus streaming service lost over $1 billion in the first quarter. Like lost $1 billion in the first quarter. All right, just to capture the highest stream subscribership. But for $1 billion, like holy moly, how do you lose $1 billion? Like negative $1 billion. Like, and no company can sustain that, can they? So I think Disney is much more perilous situation than most people think. I think if you were to ask me which one's more likely to collapse, Disney or Warner Brothers, I would kind of put my money more on Disney. Although I don't think Disney will collapse. I think the odds of that happening are very slim. But I feel like Disney's much. Don't give Disney the credit. I think they're worse. Oh, you said Warner Brothers has lost over $5 billion in the first quarter. Well, if that's true, then they're both. I think they're both in the truck. But maybe Disney's parks are down. I understand. So we'll find out. I think we'll find out. Rick H, thank you for the super chat. Have a dip out early. Grandson's soccer game. Oh, awesome. See you next week, hopefully. Yeah, I'm trying to probably move into Tuesdays because my shows are going on Wednesdays through Sundays. So I probably will do these streams on Tuesday. I have to go to the show tonight. We're off. There we go. The Godfather's message is capitalism reduces your humanity, as in Mick Corleone and other stuffs. J.R. Tolkien put it beautifully that good stories are applicable to life. Didactic art sucks. I don't know. Is Godfather message really about capitalism? Because it doesn't seem about capitalism. I don't know. I don't think we're talking about property rights when it comes to Godfather. I feel like that's kind of extending capitalism a little bit further. There you go. Gary Grady says, the message of the Godfather is once you start down the path of darkness forever, it will dominate your destiny. Perhaps. I kind of enjoyed also, if you wanted to compare, I'm not a Godfather scholar, and I haven't watched it more than like maybe 2 or 3 times in my life, but I'm more of a Goodfellas guy. And the thing about Scorsese's movies like Goodfellas, I would take Wolf of Wall Street as basically Goodfellas Part 2. It's all fun and games at the beginning until it catches up with you. It's kind of like the way with Goodfellas, right? It's all fun and games, and the first act or two is always fun and games, but then everybody just starts doing drugs like crazy, and your lifestyle catches up to you, and then it's just a train wreck after that. Abrams ruined film with his mystery box crap. I think mystery box though works better in television when you have a long form that you have to keep continually continually drag the audience along. So. NPC, I'm not, says corruption isn't the same as capitalism. Yeah. Francis Ford Coppola said it's an allegory to capitalism from the director-writer himself. Check Wikipedia. True. So the thing about that, again, I think I'm not totally versed on these technical terms, but I feel kind of like in that situation, death of the author kind of applies here. Because even though Francis Ford Coppola could say it's about capitalism, I think if you look at it, I think great art will survive this. It's like, I don't see it as a critique of capitalism because I don't see capitalism as what The Godfather is doing, because that's not capitalism. That's essentially, it's involving mafia bosses and murder and all that, and that's really kind of against what capitalism stands for. Or at least, capitalism in its truest form is more about property rights and about ownership and being able to raise funds through through aggregate, being able to spread out risk over through corporations, stuff like that. So I don't really see that the parallel. The same thing happened with me on a very controversial one I did about Squid Games, and that I really hated Squid Games because people kept saying like, "Oh, this is a critique of capitalism," and I'm saying like, no, it's not at all a critique of capitalism. So even though the authors will say that, I feel like that's not really. Again, if it's great art, I think it will stand. It will. You might be able to say, well, I mean, you think it is, even if the author says it is. I don't know. I think I'm kind of I'm not. I wouldn't use that as the final judge as what is the point of the story or point of the story, I guess. Cassidy writes, YouTube is a wonderful technology, so basically the same thing that people said with interlaced video, 60i, 60p being the same thing, and films in 24 frames a second. Sure. Haven't you been commenting on those videos? I'm not sure how to take that comment, if that's pro or against 24. Because we're pro 24 here, even though I think this stream is probably 30, but I'm sending 24 signal through a 30, whatever. Jack D. Ripper says, that's the thing, the movie's message should be interpretable. Each viewer should have their own take. I think so, yeah. Again, I think, I feel like that's more of a commentary on like truly great art. I think can be just broken down into so many different things. I just hate shallow reading, and I hate it when a movie wants to be read shallowly. Like if that terminology is even practical, it's a very onerous and somewhat clumsy way of saying it. But like there's certain movies that are purely message movies. Right? There's certainly movies that are purely, this is the message. And, what in the question you wonder, too, is like, at what point does that cross the line into propaganda? Like stuff like what's her name that wrote all the Hitler Rise, Triumph of the Will, stuff like that, where it's, this is supposed to be read in a certain way. There's no other critique of it, at least not anything presented. Lenny Rushfeld, right? Is that her name? Interesting person, though. If you are interested in like reading up on her, it's very interesting because she didn't. She was obviously close inside the Nazi Party, but she didn't get any trouble with the Nuremberg stuff. She did go. She wasn't convicted of anything, and then she kind of spent the rest of the years doing some like African portrait stuff to kind of show that she wasn't racist. But interesting character, interesting stuff. Anyhow, John Rando says, Squid Game, a critique of capitalism from the perspective of the poor. Perhaps it is. Yeah, perhaps it is. I just don't feel like it's... I feel it's also a cartoonish, and I felt it's cartoonish, and I felt it glorifying the violence in a way that I found distasteful. Like extremely distasteful. I hate Squid Game too, but it kind of shows you, if you kind of know about Korea. Maybe, I'm Taiwanese. I don't know the exact Korean thing. A Squid Game director said, I won't make a second season, but capitalism making a second season. I don't know. I am of two minds. Again, I think when I was talking about the Squid Game in the first show, I felt like there is a sort of nihilistic view of it, and I don't view capitalism in a nihilistic zero-sum game. I think that's the problem. I think most people think or taught that capitalism is some sort of a zero-sum game. Someone wins and someone loses, and that's not my experience, not my understanding of capitalism. That it is no, we all win if we all cooperate. And some win more than others, of course, but ultimately there is a give and take in the society. Yep. My definition of capitalism is not the same as mine or Kepler's or Korean who made the Squid Game. That's why you can't see it. You're absolutely right. Yeah, my definition of capitalism is not the same, which I think is why I have a problem with saying that these are arguments about capitalism, because I disagree on what your view of capitalism is. So I don't see it that way. That's why I feel like, say that's a critique of capitalism would be like saying, well, That color over there is red. It was like, well, no, that's blue. No, that's red. That's the color red. Like, no, that looks like blue to me. Well, this is a critique of red. Like, no, that's blue. You think it's red, but that's blue. I think that's in that sense, I agree with you. Then I watch it at 60i. Also, do you like The Road to Cormac or McCarthy or Ted Kaczynski Manifesto? All right. I don't know what you're talking about. See, this is an example. I'm not quite sure what that comment. I mean, it might be something that is sort of trying to troll me here, but it's also a very shallow reading of what I'm trying to talk about. Which, dumb people do dumb things. I mean, since Warner Brothers has decided to dump 2/3 of their Sesame Street episodes so they don't have to pay residuals, they're not exactly financially secure. I think they're close to collapse. Maybe. I don't pretend to be a financial wizard. I just feel like Disney is not as solid as people make it out to be. Most everyone in Hollywood is liberal and shallow. Naturally, they'll pull out something out of critiquing capitalism for their stories because they are like that. So I mean, yes, I think it's not so much that Hollywood is liberal. I just think it is an industry Hollywood is an industry that deals with superficial. Like, that's just the reality. It's the job of Hollywood to sell superficial, and they figured out, well, we can make a lot more money selling superficial stuff than we can selling deep stuff. So we'll just make more superficial stuff. So I want to know how Warner Brothers in Japan and stuff are doing compared to America. I don't know. I'm not sure. Nelly CU says, I know why Disney lost so much, and if they carry on their trend, they will lose more. Warner's is making changes but because of the loss, hence the cancellations. I think they're right. I think you're right. Again, I think we talk about Disney. Look at MCU. I feel like the popular zeitgeist about the MCU is sort of getting tired of it. Look at Star Wars. I feel like people are getting tired of Star Wars. What else has the Disney bought that's really big? I mean, Pixar is still doing strong, but Lightyear didn't do very well because, no one wanted a Lightyear movie, a Buzz Lightyear prequel movie. So I feel like unless Disney kind of like starts going back to making stuff that's kind of original, but not too original, and safe for families to consume, because that's really been the brand of Disney for so long, is like, you can park your kid in front of a Disney Channel and they will never feel bad about it. That's the kind of the proposition. And part of that, like there is a conservative backlash against Disney. And conservatives are the ones having the kids. So you don't want to piss off those that core audience. So I think, is Disney doomed? I don't think so. I think Disney's got in a position to do a lot of good things. But they've got to be careful. They got to figure out how to serve their audience. I love ambiguity, says Saul Goodman. The Pulp Fiction briefcase, The Sopranos ending, if it makes the audience talk and think about it longer. Yeah, I like ambiguity, but sometimes ambiguities for ambiguity's sake can be a dangerous trap. But I agree. No, Pulp Fiction briefcase. I was just actually watching. It was late. I didn't want to watch the whole thing, but I was just watching part of Pulp Fiction, the beginning of it. The Sopranos ending is really good, too. Although I never watched The Sopranos, but... Yeah, Jack D. Ripper's got a point. Patton is a great example, also written by Coppola. One side came out, the movie seeing him as a hero, the other side saw him as a warmonger. And I think, the real truth is he was both. When I visited the Andrew Jackson presidential home called Monticello. Is it Monticello? No, that Monticello is Jefferson. The Hermitage in near Nashville, and one of the guides had a great quote about Andrew Jackson. It was a video. He said, "If you're looking to Andrew Jackson as a demon, you will find several cases of that. If you look to Andrew Jackson as a hero, you will find several things to support that case. But the reality is, it's a little bit of both." That's funny. Yeah, Hitler was pretty woke for making a woman in charge of some of those movies. Yeah, I don't know about that. Cassidy, I'm Pro 24. I thought you were. I was poking fun at the same kind of people that poked fun. Oh, yeah, 60i 60p video. Yeah, in that game. Gary says the way they ended Squid Games, I kind of feel that they may have actually added that last scene. Because the last scene where he's getting on the airplane and then it's like he turns around. I feel like that's one of those, they could have just like hired the actor for one day to shoot that part. Because it's like, okay, we're just going to have you walk down this airplane tarmac. We're just going to record that. All right, go. And then we'll just record everything else on a phone. So I feel like that's probably, and that might have been added once they did the show, and they're like, hey, you know, if you Netflix requests that you won't put something in there to help have it continue. NPC says, I agree, but the director does see it as evil. That's why it's kind of ironic. Korea became great because it shifted to capitalism, but it's corruption and monopolies that wreck it. Yeah, and you know, I think also another point, if we're going to talk about philosophically about economic systems, capitalism and corruption are not the same thing. Corruption is sort of the antithesis of free market economies. And I'm also not a complete free market libertarian, because I don't believe that libertarianism works in the short term, at least. It could lead to some massive inefficiencies in the short run. An example I always give, and people always kind of give me crap for it, but like housing building codes. If you just have no building codes, I think what happens is a race to the bottom. The city outside of Hong Kong, that old city that was kind of the model for a lot of the dystopian cyberpunk movies out there. I think it's called the Walled City. Basically, it was a city that was kind of like left to its own, and people just built this like 6-story mega structure of winding passageways. And look it up. I forget the Kwandong or something like that. I forget. I can't remember the name of it. But look up that city outside of Hong Kong, the lawless city of Hong Kong. And basically, it was all kinds of, the wiring was mishmash, people running extension cords everywhere. I mean, it was just chaos, complete, utter chaos. But it survived, and people existed for a while. But, they could have had a fire. And if one fire, the whole place goes up, I feel like some sort of regulation is necessary. But the argument of that, I hate to get too much into an economics argument, the argument of that is, well, if you have a libertarian society, those kind of regulation form bodies will emerge naturally. And my point of that was, well, they might after a long enough time, and then those are also highly susceptible to corruption and also have no authority, the answer to no one. So I feel like there's going to be some need for regulation. I'm getting awfully deep into economic theory, man. This is I didn't want to turn the show into that. Let's jump ahead a little bit. Here we go. Jack D. Ripper says, something I love about Invasion of Body Snatchers is that it works as an allegory for communism taking people over, but also works as a fear of communism taking people over. That's a good point. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. Rigel 7, I'm here. Please start over now. Okay. Hi, John Hess from Maker IQ. She-Hulk, saw it. I kind of liked it. It wasn't as bad as people saying it is, and it's not as super woke as people are saying it is. It'll be fun. Watch it. If not, don't watch it. You don't have to. It's on Disney. Watch it if you don't want to watch it. I watched the Red Letter Media's review of Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and it made me want to watch Good, Bad, and Ugly. Because I've not seen that in a long time. Yeah, David says, you will never get in trouble for critiquing capitalism or claiming to do so. Then you can put the mantle of transgressive artist without risking anything. Yeah, let's be honest. That's true. It's so trendy. It's kind of like the other thing I was saying the other day was, it's so brave for you to be anti-bullying. Like no one is pro-bullying. It's not brave to be anti-bullying at all. But I guess Bill Maher got in trouble when he said that way back in 2001 about the hijackers. So don't make that mistake. Dr. Gull says, Hollywood likes to feel that people like them, so they like to make pablum. And after a time, you will taste, not mulch. Yep. Yeah. I think I know what you're saying. It's all a popularity contest. It's all high school. Yeah, Disney had Touchstone and did not want to have it connected to Disney brand until Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Remember also Nightmare Before Christmas, right? Nightmare Before Christmas, man, I remember when I was in high school, Nightmare came out when I was in sixth grade. So by the time I got to high school, it was kind of considered a classic, but it was still kind of a cult classic. I remember suggesting that the high school do Nightmare Before Christmas for their field show one year. And these two, let's call them goody two-shoed girls, said, no, that's satanic. You can't be doing that. It's satanic. Well, 10 years later, and if you've been to Disneyland during the Christmas time, it's always Nightmare Before Christmas. They turned the Haunted Mansion into a Nightmare Before Christmas thing. Now Disney loves Nightmare Before Christmas. So back then, oh, no, Nightmare, that's Touchstone. That's not us. Comment says, got to go. I prefer the capitalism definition given by the historians. The world would be originally made up of Marxist reader to call system that they fight where business owners are the power brokers. Was originally made up by Marxist reader to call, okay. Well, you prefer the Marxist version then, not the historian. Again, I think I prefer the Adam Smith version, which I think is a little... Kunlu, there it is, Kowloon Walled City. All right, anyhow. I prefer the Libertarian by Tom Nichols. You know, sure. I feel like that's kind of get into more word thinking then. If we're just sitting here like discussing things like what words mean, I guess, you know, what particular labels. Whereas I guess I'm doing that too in a sense. I will go so far as to say that. I have to ask you this as written LACU, and I hope you see it. Have you seen Carter on Netflix? If so, what do you think of the camera work? Carter, no. Which one's that about? Netflix is like the last thing I open up, honestly. I don't really watch a lot of Netflix. Even bullies are anti-bullying. Yeah. If you unlike it, libertarian or capitalism. If you dislike it, monopoly or corruption. If you dislike the film message, it's propaganda, if not good message. Yeah, I agree. Although I feel like I can make it. I mean, I don't think I have any special powers, although I will tend to agree with it. But I feel like I can sense propaganda more than I can, even if it's my own side. Like I will recognize. I mean, I don't think anybody else. I think generally populations don't do that. Like if they don't see, like I can see like American propaganda for the war effort, I can still label it as propaganda. And I actually label myself as a propagandist sometimes. It was like when I was working with some real estate companies, and I really felt like I was making propaganda for whatever cause that they were trying to promote. Because I wasn't allowed to basically, I had questions. I had like issues with what they were trying to do, but like, you know, I can't voice those in the videos I made. So I was like, kind of propagandist. Most of the hot button issues today are cultural and moral, not economic at all. That's a point. I'll lay that thought. Let's think about that. Cultural and moral. I also feel like sometimes maybe society has gotten to the point where it's so good that we no longer, that the economic ones are not necessarily the hardest ones, that we become much more sensitive to smaller issues. Rogue Wolf says we said the same thing. Solid. Maybe. Sorry, said Cassie, I've only been talking about stuff like 60i and 60p. I just find this stuff fascinating. I had no idea stuff like that existed. It's amazing. Did you just discover 60i and 60p? Well, I think I saw you commenting on that video. But yeah, no, it's like so I started teaching college last week, and I started getting into 60i and 60p, but I was a little worried that in a classroom where people aren't diehard like tech and film nuts, that maybe that topic. So I kind of covered it in a way like I kind of give you a little taste of it without going in too deep into it. I don't know. Speaking of economics, what's up with the theater companies filing for bankruptcy? Regal Cineworld? I think it's a combination of COVID accelerating basically the general trend of what's been happening to the movies. You know, Maverick was a kind of exception in that a lot of people went to the theaters to go see this, to see, Top Gun Maverick. But there hasn't been a whole lot of other movies to kind of drive people to theaters recently. The James Bond movie wasn't great. Coming out of the pandemic, people are, I feel like nowadays most people are probably like used to going back out to crowds again. I don't think that's a stigma for most people anymore. But generally speaking, streaming and the fact that the big movies aren't really coming out. Although now I kind of want to see that movie, the movie by George Miller, the new one. I don't know, I forget the name of it. The guy that did Mad Max and all those. But it looks interesting. It looks really cool. The term capitalism was not Adam Smith time. It appeared after Marx. Yeah, I guess you're right. But I'm kind of referring to that kind of capitalism. Yeah, wait till the recession again. Medical bankruptcies return. Got to go for now. Good night. See ya. Yeah, no, medical's a real issue. No, I don't know. I don't think we need to wait till the recession again. I feel like we're in a weird time right now where people are not willing to accept, or at least some people in the political realm are not willing to accept that we're in a recession. I feel like the gas price shock really kind of woke people up, especially bothered the hell out of me. I know gas is now down quite a bit from where it was in the high, but man, oh man, it was crazy. I did not like it one bit, and it just goes to show you like where kind of the shocks of the economy, like what that can do to people's basically purse. Graduation of the job, I guess to start having to call you professor. You can call me professor, you can call me John, you can call me Mr. Hess, you can call me your highness. That's all acceptable. Just don't call me late for dinner. Although I am trying to cut this part of my body off too as well. I would love to lose, let's put it 50 pounds. That'd be great. Let's make that happen. I don't feel like it's going to happen, but I'll work on it. Correct. Our society is a level of self-awareness greater than any other time. And the nature of human instincts of survival, there are those that refuse to accept what awareness gives them. Interesting comment there. So one of the things I'm going to talk about next week, I'm going to kind of hint at it, and I think it's kind of worth talking about from the cultural and moral standpoint. So I'm talking about the history of editing. And if you watch my video on montage, and I get into the early history of montage, it goes from D.W. Griffith into kind of the Soviet montage theory. So I'm going to be covering that in class. And a lot of times I would occasionally get comments on my video about D.W. Griffith when I talk about Birth of a Nation. Birth of a Nation is one of those films that, it is historically crucial to the history of film. Is also unquestionably racist. Like, even by any standards of the imagination, it is full of racism. You don't need to be searching out for, you don't need to like look for hidden racism. No, it's not hidden. It's blatantly racist. It was so racist that in its day, the governor of New York called for sections of it to be cut out because he deemed them reprehensible. Like the mayor of New York, in 1914, 15, whenever the movie came out, said, this movie is too racist, let's cut it down. And back then, film wasn't free speech, so they could do that. But, so it's hyperly important to talk about it, but also acknowledge what, as a point, acknowledge the fact that it is, deeply troubling. Even in its time, it was deeply troubling. And I think also that to me, I don't read it as how horrible D.W. Griffith is, as what a terrible human being. I don't see it that way. I think of it more as D.W. Griffith was obviously a very talented filmmaker. I don't think he realized the power that he was wielding with his camera. And I don't think he realized what he was necessarily doing or saying. To him, because he grew up as a Kentucky colonel's son, down in the South, like this was his reality. Like he didn't think that this was controversial in any slight imagination. He wasn't trying to be awful and mean and terrible. He just had these beliefs. I don't know. It's interesting. So my approach to it is I don't believe in canceling D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. And it's the weirdest thing. There, people took off Lillian Gish's name off of some screening room because of her involvement with that movie. And Lillian Gish had a lot of other movies she was involved with. Like, that was just one movie. It's not worth taking her down. I don't believe in canceling that movie. I don't believe in making it unavailable for people to watch because it's so critically important historically. I just feel that there are things that you can learn. We don't necessarily need to watch it unless you're going to deeply dive into it and watch it. There's no reason to really revisit that film. Yeah, Jack Ripper says, I prefer Intolerance, but no doubt Birth of a Nation is important. Yeah, definitely. Intolerance, and so Intolerance was basically his follow-up to Birth of a Nation, and some people, I think myself, maybe originally thought it was kind of an apology for Birth. It's not really an apology. It was more like a quote, a rebuke to his critics, saying, "You guys are all being intolerant of me," and I think he's kind of a point, but yeah, I don't know. Birth of a Nation needs to be seen just to remind people what real racism looks like without the spin or modern verbal twist. That's a good point. I'm not going to show it in the class because I don't feel this is not a class about historic film or racism. I think if you were doing a class about that, then I'd say watch it. Like see what it was. Yeah, let's see. Nelly CU says The Sadness, a Taiwanese film. Everyone check it out if you have the guts. If you have the guts, what does that mean? Is it like a horror film or is it like a super sad film or what? Fill us in. To be fair, the old D.W. Griffith Southern Reconstruction was quite brutal. Yeah, perhaps, yeah. Again, that's what I feel like. I feel like, again, we can look through history, and we can look through history through the lens of modern thinking. And I guess I deal with that a lot in my videos. Let's go down this rabbit hole for a bit. I did a video about slit scan, the Kubrick slit scan effect, and recently I kind of got into somebody because I said that there's a shot of Earth which is called the blue marble, and if you've seen any Time magazine picture of the full Earth, and it's got, I think it's usually Africa in the center. And it's called, it's one of the most popular images ever made, 1972 or 73, like one of the Apollo missions, one of the later Apollo missions. And I said it was one of the very first pictures of its kind. And I get in trouble because there have been other pictures taken by satellites of the full Earth before that picture was taken. But because I said that was the first picture of its kind, now I think I overstated the purpose of saying it's the first picture taken by a human being of the full Earth, fully illuminated like a full disk. Okay. But I think people look back at history, like, the movie 2001 came out in 1960, I want to say 65, 66. And the very first satellite picture of the full illuminated Earth came out in about 1965, so like a year before its release. But that's if we approach the history of images from a modern perspective. To think that, the satellite, James Webb Telescope, all of a sudden our Twitter feeds are full of all these images from the James Webb. We're all seeing these images. But they didn't have Twitter back then. Who knows how broadly sent out the very first images of satellite were made. So I think we fall in this trap of looking at history through the modern lens. So thinking about movies from the modern perspective, thinking about the example I gave in class is the horse galloping animatic that Edward Muybridge shot. I mean, you think about it today, you could easily pull that off. That's so easy to do. You just get a bunch of cameras lined up, and just have a horse. Just have them all shoot video and have the horse galloping by, and then you can slow frame. You could just slow frame, or you can just track a horse when you shoot the horse. But back in 1870s, 1880s, that was pretty darn near impossible to do. The technology was so different. So I wonder too, the further we get away from old history and we look at history from modern senses, we don't really understand what they were thinking and how they thought about things. And I don't know, personally, I like watching some of these old movies. I was watching this D.W. Griffith short called The Lonely Villa, which I'm probably going to show in class. I like watching it because there's a high def version out there from the National Archive. And I just like watching the people's faces, and I like watching the women's faces and the men's faces and see what they looked like before the Rudolph Valentinos, before the movie stars that we're so familiar with, those more beautiful than beautiful people of Hollywood. I want to see, I go back to the early silent film stuff, look at D.W. Griffith's films where those actors were more like just regular people of their day, and look at those faces. And then in some ways imagine how you would have felt if you were making a movie at that time period. To me, that's what's magical about some of these really old films, is being able to step back in that time and just getting a sense of those people from those days. I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah. It still bugs me to say people, I don't like those black and white films. They're boring. Yeah. I hear that. Yeah, like the Lighthouse is not boring. It's weird. There's so many great black and white films. Anyhow, the past is a different country. They do things differently there. Interesting. A good comment. Now we get an answer for this. The Sadness, the Taiwanese film, is a horror infection zombie film set in Taiwan that showcases the most brutal, aware, and deviant zombies, practically hell on earth. Ooh, all right. There you go. There's your movie recommendations for those that want to see some brutality. It's The Sadness. Cassie says, thinking about anything from the past in a modern day lens is impossible. Yep. Yeah, maybe because I'm a certain age, like I look at, when I do those movie histories, I do the movie studios, and I haven't done one in a while. But I always put myself in the shoes of those movie moguls and just imagine the kind of excitement and the fun that they were having in those days. I mean, think about it. Like going back to the golden era of Hollywood, right? Like there was no television. So like those guys would be working every single week. They show up to the set, the Hollywood studio lot. And, the cinematographer would shoot a movie one week, and then the next movie was assigned to another movie. And just be working constantly. There wasn't like sit down and like really think about you just shoot it. Because you got to churn it out, man. You got to churn it out. And it was a constant factory process. And it was like, man, sure, it's a job, but it's still kind of cool. Yeah, black and white is great. Why can't black and white movies be? Yeah, I think I know what you're saying with that. Even I don't think you're not saying the movies aren't great, but yeah, I get it. David the Gnome says, I really need to catch his live streams more often. I'm remembering why I subscribed. Well, thank you. I get both responses to the live streams. The live streams, to be honest, is a way for me to check in. My life is so hectic right now. I'm trying to finish up my house because next week I think they're going to put the floor in. So I got to call and confirm that. So I was trying to paint the house all week, and I'm trying to get my house somewhat back in order. My mom really can't walk anymore. She's kind of declining a little bit further of her ability to walk. So I've got to try to take care of her. And I'm now started teaching, and I'm doing a musical from Wednesday through Sunday. And I have sort of this job that exists that I pretend to do, I guess. Once I get my house, I think I can go back doing some more of this job. And Filmmaker IQ. So the live streams are a way for me to check in, at least create some content so Google doesn't think I'm dead. Although, Google might already think I'm dead. But it's kind of a way to kind of hang out with you guys. So I get a lot of people sometimes say, like, oh, I miss your old videos where you used to talk about the history of movies. Well, yeah, there's only so many times you can go over the history of montage. But I do have a wall of ideas I want to do. Once things kind of settle down, I can start going back to making some other stuff. But the live streams are a way to check in. And we get to talk about stuff, hopefully in an unfiltered way, in a way that probably will get me canceled sometime in the future. We'll see how that goes. But, yeah, so hopefully you enjoy it. And I like to do it with you guys and hang out with you guys in this chat and just talk. Because I don't get to do that much. Because my mom also, she has dementia. She doesn't talk, so hardly talks at all. I watched the original trailer for Casablanca and has so many fancy transitions. I know it's like made by the old premiere, like whip pans, Yeah, if it was made today, you would think it was a student trying to every transition in PowerPoint. That's a great point. That's a great line there. Yeah. Now the trailer. I mean, I guess the reason why they did that back in those days, that was super technically difficult to do. Like in order to make a shape wipe between characters with two pieces of film and an optical printer, ooh, it was tricky. So those transitions meant, hey, this guy's got some fancy equipment and fancy techniques, and now it just looks like something somebody threw together in Premiere, just like drop every single transition in between everything. Yeah. John Rando, the black don't understand those who can't get into them. Maybe more should be made. Black and white with 4K cameras would be. So have you watched Francis Ha? That's a great movie in black and white. It kind of goes back to a little bit of that Manhattan that Woody Allen made. And Woody Allen's kind of a person non grata. My opinion on Woody Allen is Woody Allen is unquestionably a weird guy. His whole sexual history is weird. I'm going to fully admit that he's not like. I would not let Woody Allen babysit my daughter. Let's put it that way, okay? No. However, Mia Farrow strikes me as someone that is vindictive. So I don't know what to believe on that. But I'm not going to cancel Woody. Woody Allen used to be one of my favorite directors. I've kind of stayed away from him because, normal. There's a thing about him that's a little icky. I get it. And I've kind of moved a little past. But Francis Ha is in a very much kind of a playback a little bit on Manhattan. Francis Ha, Noam Blum, what's the girl's name? Didn't she win an Oscar? Greta Gerwig. Greta Gerwig is in that. They shot that on a red monochrome camera. Beautifully shot film. It's probably the better of the mumblecore. I wouldn't even consider it mumblecore. It's kind of mumblecore, but it's not. It's actually a very well-made movie. But Francis Ha is great. I think it's beautiful too. Also, things like The Lighthouse, which are I need to watch Lighthouse again because I kind of fell asleep the first time I watched it in the theaters because back then also I didn't have sleep apnea machine, so I was falling asleep a lot. Woody Allen shot a moose. I did not. Did he? Is that literal? Am I supposed to take that literally, or is that a joke? I can't tell. But I don't think he would shoot a moose, would he? Unless it was a. David says Woody Allen is unquestionably a weird guy. The sage word. You can put that on my tombstone. Woody Allen is unquestionably a weird guy. Yeah, he is weird. Wow. But his film, like some of his stuff, is really in some ways it's like Woody Allen and Mel Brooks, like the two kind of New York Jewish influence. Mel Brooks being obviously the more like the Catskills kind of comedy, and Woody Allen being more. Woody Allen started in the comedy circuit, but he started off with like kind of goofy movies like Bananas and stuff like that. And he became more introspective, more like French New Wave inspired, and I liked kind of that in between. But yeah, when I think about like New York Jewish humor, like those are kind of the two names that pop up. Mel Brooks hasn't had any terrible things happen with him. And Mel Brooks is another great character. If you want to read up about Mel Brooks. Like he's most people know Mel Brooks as he's the guy that that made all these all the movies like The Producers and Spaceballs and so forth. Robin Hood, Men in Tights, so forth. Okay, that's one Mel Brooks. The other half of Mel Brooks is a producer, and him and his wife, and her name escapes me. She's really famous. Dang it! But him and his wife were a pretty powerful producing couple, and I don't know if they were directly responsible. I think they were helping distribute David Lynch's Eraserhead. I think they may have helped produce or distribute Eraserhead, or in some ways they were involved with helping David Lynch succeed in some way. Don't quote me on that. But there's like a lot of stuff about Mel Brooks that it wasn't just a goofy, funny, like satirical Catskills, Borscht Belt kind of humor. There's a huge body of work that he did like end up producing well. It's kind of similar to like Ricky Arnaz, not Ricky Arnaz. yeah, Desi Arnaz, and Lucy Lucille Ball, who were kind of very deeply involved with the production of other shows. Like Lucille Ball is the reason why we had Star Trek, because she's like, we're going to make this show because I like it, or I'm not sure if that's exactly what she said, but that's the idea. Hey, Mendo, how you doing? Oh, Jack Ripper says he produced Elephant Man. That's where it is. So I think Mel Brooks saw Eraserhead. This kid's got talent. And he's like, yeah, like you said, he saw it in Eraserhead and loved it. He's like, this kid's got talent. I'm going to help him out. And that's what we get Eraserhead, or Elephant Man. So you never, who'd have thought? Like, you wouldn't be like, Mel Brooks presents Elephant Man. Like, people going to see that movie like, this is not what I signed up for. Oh, that's good. Jack D. River says he called Lynch Jimmy Stewart from Mars. That's very apt. There's something about Lynch that's very like homespun Americana and like super, like almost wholesome about David Lynch. And yet he is from frickin' Mars, right? So, and by the way, Saul talks about Twin Peaks. I never watched Twin Peaks. I never had the patience for it, but I love the other David Lynch products. I wasn't crazy about Inland Empire, but the other like 3 or 4 movies that he created between Dune and I think was it Lost Highway, I thought was Lost Highway is really good. Mulholland Drive, which I understand was the kind of like failed pilot. Blue Velvet, obviously, really good. I forget the other. What was another one that was in that period? Anyhow. Yeah, I watched slowly getting into Lynch, but man, he's a strange one. Best way to describe him by quoting your mom here is someone who's done a bit too much. I don't think he does acid. I think he does transcendental meditation. He's like a super, very meditative. I think he might have done a lot of coffee. I think he sits there. And Lynch is okay. So when we're talking about interesting, it's always fascinating to go back and read about about the histories of Mel Brooks, history of David Lynch, and go back and watch some of his old short films from his art school days. Like man, oh man, the guy. And I love this about Lynch, and I kind of want to model a little bit after him, but I don't know if I can reach that level. But he uses transcendental meditation to tap into this deep, bizarre, internal world where all these insane ideas come from. And that's how he gets there. I don't think he does. I might be wrong. I don't think he does acid. I don't think he does any chemical. I think he acts, well, maybe coffee. I guess lots of caffeine or something like that. The story's about he's sitting there like in the Bob's Big Boy restaurant and just keep drinking coffee and just coming up with these, going deeper and deeper and deeper into that idea. And if you've ever been to Las Vegas, and there's this place called Omega Mart, and it's a part of the company called Meow Wolf, and they do these extreme transcendental, that's not even a word, transcendent, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. These bizarre out there, like what WTF am I watching? This is, like, it doesn't make logical sense, but it makes logical sense. It's playful, it's funny, but it's bizarre and weird. And if I could go there, like as a filmmaker, if I were to make a film, and I'm always trying to, I'm always thinking about doing it, although right now my life is crazy, you've found out. That's where I want to tap into, that weird, bizarre, what am I watching? But you can't stop watching it because it's it's transfixing, it's hypnotic. Now, I spoke enough about David Lynch, man. I hear that David Lynch did a little too much LDS at Berkeley during the free speech movement. Is that Latter-day Saints? Just kidding. I know what you're talking about. He joined the Mormons. Yeah. Lynch is full of dreams, the twisted ones. Have you seen his latest thing? It's like, it's Tuesday, August 23rd. It's a bright sunny day, and the temperature is 73 degrees Fahrenheit at 5:08 in the morning. He does these like news reports every day. It's weird. But and have you guys seen the one that David Lynch interviews a monkey? That one's really good. That one's really good. But it's a weird so David Lynchian. He does the weather report. Yeah. That's the one. It's the one where he's interviewing him. He's a police interrogating a monkey, like a spider monkey. He's like, we know, like Mr. Tsar, we know what happened. Tell us what happened to your wife. And the monkey's like talking. It's like his voice is dubbed. And David Lynch is like interrogating, but it's all shot in black and white. It's the also thing. Okay, I'll leave enough on David Lynch. But I'll talk about this real quick. What I also love about David Lynch, which everyone I think misses, that people that are trying to copy David Lynch but not really succeeding, is David Lynch is weird and bizarre and creepy and all of that. But he's also a master at telling story. Like, his stories are intrinsically interesting. That's the thing. Like, he doesn't just shove weird shit in your eyes. He incorporates weird shit in a story that's compelling. And you're like, you're trying to figure out where he's going with this. And I think that's the mistake a lot of people make, is they try to do weird stuff and shocking stuff, but there's no, like, story. And David Lynch is a master of story. So anyhow. Yeah, Cassie, did David Lynch interviewed a monkey? Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's Jack D. River. Look him up. Let's see if I can find it real quick. I won't show it to you. David Lynch monkey. What Did Jack Do is the name of it. It's on Netflix. Yeah. Here, I'll just show you real quick. See, there's my screen, my desktop there. Yeah, it's right here. What Did Jack Do? And it's like only 17 minutes long. It's in black and white. It's gorgeous. It's yeah, literally a detective interrogates a monkey who is suspected of murder. I won't spoil for you what happens, but it's fantastic. Oh my God! It just goes to show you what David Lynch is capable of. Absolutely. Rio says, I have no time for monkey business. No monkey. And Jack Ripper says, yeah, in strong visuals. The great thing about, yeah. Because, he comes from an artistic background. That's his start, was art school. I think he was more of a painter. I'm not sure, a painter or a sculptor. Rigel says, black and white? Sounds boring. All stupid black and white movies. Oh, I want to watch those black and whites. Spot on about the story aspect. As I mentioned, Twin Peaks has a lot of dreams that may seem weird, but it's since the main character is slowly analyzing them. Yeah. Twin Peaks: The Return is peak television, in my opinion. There you go. I never got into Twin Peaks. I don't know. To me, it's kind of hard to watch older TV shows nowadays with the expectation that, it's all standard definition. You're like, it's all standard definition. That's crispy, clean, and looking, and sharp looking. So, yeah. That's damn fine coffee. I'm glad we morphed from discussing economic theory and capitalism, and now we're talking about David Lynch and his coffee. That's what you get on these live streams. I prefer to talk about coffee because I think it's more fun to talk about sometimes talking about stuff like that. And cherry pie. Gotta have that cherry pie. Yep. I made for opening night. I made so here's a quick recipe for you guys. Because I know you come down to Filmmaker IQ to get tips on how to entertain. All right. The most basic, bullshittingly easy dessert treat that you can serve at a party. You can take to a cocktail party, right? And you can wow so many people, but it's so ridiculously easy how to make. All you gotta do is you buy either a shot glass or you buy little cups. All right? It doesn't matter how big the cup. All right, here's the secret. You buy a box of graham crackers, like cinnamon graham crackers. You put them in a Ziploc bag and you beat the shit out of it, right? You make it all crumbly. Then you put it on the bottom of the cup. Then you buy a can of apple pie filling or cherry pie filling or whatever pie filling. And you pour the filling on top of the crumbs. And if you want to get fancy, you can add a dollop of like cream cheese icing. You don't have to. But that's all you got to do. It's a graham cracker crumb, pie filling, and you can walk into a party and say, I brought deconstructed apple pie. And everyone will be like, holy crap, that is delicious, and it's amazing. And all you did was throw it in a bag and beat it for a while. And just pound it, like, I hate 24 FPS, right? You just do that, and then like spoon some pie filling on top. Incredibly easy to make. Impresses everyone like crazy. So if at the wrap party, at your next wrap party, do that for your cast and crew. They'll think you are a fucking gourmet chef. I'm swearing a lot for some reason. It's hot. It's really freaking hot in here. You're going to think you're a gourmet chef, and all you did was throw crumbs in a bag and hit it with your fists. It's the most dumbest thing. But I got so many compliments for my little deconstructed pie. And it was so easy to do. So there you have it. I just got my blood work back, and I found I have low testosterone. That's probably why, because I'm in I'm in the kitchen making deconstructed pie. That's what I'm doing. Oh well. All right. Part of the problem with watching old TV shows is that the music score has changed. Has it changed since then? Huh. I haven't seen Twin Peaks, but I did see that episode of The X-Files with Charles Nelson Riley. I never watched The X-Files as a kid either. See, here's a story. So here's a story for all you. When I was a kid, I was third grade or fourth grade or something like that. I came from Taiwan, so I was kind of slow on reading. Probably still am slow on reading. But I came to the United States, and for some reason, when I was in third or fourth grade, I was super into UFOs. I was like, oh man, at that time they had shows like A Current Affair. Do you guys remember A Current Affair? Anyone old enough to remember A Current Affair? The old one back in the day? They had shows like that. They had Sightings. Sightings was a show I used to watch. These are all on Fox, because Fox is always the bad boy channel in the 90s, right? So I was obsessed with UFOs, right? Until one night, I swear I was abducted by UFOs. Or at least I don't know. I had a nightmare. I literally had a terrifying nightmare that I woke up, that I was like abducted. Because in your young mind, I mean, what the hell? So after that point, I became extremely like scared of UFOs. And I've seen a couple UFOs in my life, and it freaked me out. It gave me chills. Remember the movie Signs, when you first see the alien and how shocking that is? Man, when you see a UFO, and you see something, I remember seeing a speck on my car windshield when I was a kid, and then looking away, and I came back and the speck was gone. I was like, oh my God, they're coming, they're finally getting to me. And I found a little chip in my earlobe. It felt like a little microchip was put there. Now, I think what happened was it's just like little bits of cartilage that break off and kind of migrate down your earlobe. So I mean, it's probably a rational explanation to all that. But I was super frightened of UFOs all throughout as a kid, just terrified of them. I went from loving them to the next day, boom, scared as hell from UFOs and aliens and all that stuff. So I avoided everything. X-Files, no way, not gonna watch that because it's got UFOs. Creeped me out, and I was a kid when X-Files came out. So yeah. All right, let's see. Get back to your comments. I ranted about some UFOs. Let's see. You can watch vintage TV shows in 60p because it's 60i. I wish they would leave them in 60i though. The example they gave in that Twilight Zone, they tried to de-interlace it into 30p, which is I wanted to see an original 60i. There are a few examples. The thing I hate about YouTube though also is a lot of old shows get compressed to hell. For some reason I got deep into watching Laugh-In, clips from Laugh-In, which is kind of funny because I was watching more out of just curiosity. I wasn't finding them particularly funny. I mean, sometimes they were kind of funny, but I wasn't really laughing at the jokes. But I was just fascinated by watching this time era. So I was going down this rabbit hole of watching all these old Laugh-In episodes, and I kind of felt like, man, the quality of this on YouTube isn't as good as it could be. It's a second generation dupe of a tape then converted to digital, but not really done in a good way. There are a few really old TV shows on YouTube. They put the original clips from the 60s. 50s and 60s, some old black and white. It's a black and white basketball game that you can actually watch in 60p because it was 60i back in those days. I remember vital information from all that on Nickelodeon. I never got Nickelodeon. I didn't have cable as a kid, So I didn't get cable till I was a freshman in high school. And at that point, I didn't want to watch Nickelodeon. Although, could have watched Nick at Night, but never did. I had a dream that I was Mighty Mouse. Yeah, that's. I think we all want to be Mighty Mouse. John, you are still abducted from a UFO. I think that's now. I kind of play with it a lot. There's a lot of UFO imagery in some of my filmmaker IQ stuff. Kind of make fun of it. Oh, I like it more than Black Mirror, but I'm a hardcore Lynch fan, and in return is exceeded my expectations. Yeah, let's talk about Black Mirror real quick, because I don't particularly like Black Mirror. And the reason why, I think, is I feel like Black Mirror is a little, and again, is all this stuff is anthologized, right? Anthologies are such a weird thing, because you can't say, I didn't like Black Mirror. Well, which episode? Because every episode is so different, There's some episodes I like better than others. But I feel like Black Mirror never takes it to the next step. It always stops before it gets really good. It's like, they'll run a sci-fi concept, but then kind of just like, oh, and look how awful and horrible everything is. The end. And be like, look how awful and horrible things is. But what happens after? Like, I don't feel like I'm never like surprised or like, oh, I didn't think it would go that way. It's always the most obvious thing with Black Mirror. I'll tell you the counterexample, and it wasn't really a well-produced show at all. It was called When Do Androids Dream? And it was based on the Philip K. Dick short stories, and it was on Amazon. And it's the production value is not as slick as Black Mirror, but the storylines were a lot more, I think, optimistic. And not to say that I'm anti, like, pessimistic storytelling, but it just felt like I like to look at things in a way that I didn't suspect. We're so used to looking at things in a bad light. Sometimes, like, the Philip K. Dick stories just, to me, were more surprising and more interesting than Black Mirror. Anyway, you got me talking about Black Mirror. Just filling time as I wait for more comments to come in. Anyhow, Dr. Gull says, as far as UFO go, I remember the Project UFO on TV with the bad models and worse acting, but damn, it was fun to watch when the effects were nerds like me. Yeah. Yep, yeah, I don't think I remember Project UFO. Remember Alien Nation? Alien Nation from the 90s? Yeah, I remember that. I never watched that show because I found that frightening. There's a character on Twin Peaks called Bob. He's utterly terrifying. I gotta watch Twin Peaks, I guess. Rigel says, I remember one night walking home as a kid and worrying that there was a Klingon bird of prey in the sky. You might have watched my little intro, too. I put that in there. I think Laugh-Ins were on Prime at some point. I was too young to see them for the first time. Are they? I have to check them out. Like, Laugh-In, I don't think it was, it's weird. I was, and for some reason, I was watching like a Carol Burnett. I got served Carol Burnett show for a little bit, and I was watching a little bit of Carol Burnett, and I don't think there's an equivalent version of that kind of comedy today. In some ways, like Ellen DeGeneres is sort of a Carol Burnett kind of a thing. Like Carol Burnett wasn't particularly like attractive. She wasn't like a sexually attractive person, but she was a funny person. So she kind of played like she transcended just being the beauty model on TV and being more like the humorous model, kind of like Fanny Bryce. Is that her name, Fanny Bryce from Funny Girl? It's like women that weren't conventionally attractive, but were able to be more of the clowns, and then make their stardom that way. I don't know what my point is on that. I don't have a point. I'm just talking about stuff. I'm just rambling. These are just ramble-a-thons. Sorry if you came here for a thoughtful thing. All right, let's see. It just dawned on me that I have Paint It Black, and I ripped the DVDs of Tour of Duty, and I should be able to write a script that replaces the lame music, a script that replaces the beginning. Oh, okay. That's so weird that they would do that. You'd think that these shows, well, I guess not. You think these shows would just hunker down and pay the rights for it. They're paying the rights for the actors, Was Black Mirror trying to toe the line of being passable as nonfiction, not sci-fi? I don't think so. Like I said, I just don't think that, I don't think it explored the topic in interesting ways. I think it just took a pessimistic view on everything. And that's the whole show was just pessimism about technology. Another show that's really interesting, like I thought it was a great premise. The second season's kind of a little ho-hum, but the first season was so interesting. It was called Upload. I talked about this on a show a long time ago. Check out Upload. It's on Amazon. It's by I think the showrunner is Greg Daniels. If you don't know who Greg Daniels is, his background is King of the Hill. His background is Parks and Recreation, I believe, and it's got a lot. It's just clever. The production value is okay, but it's just a clever, interesting sci-fi show. It's not hyper sci-fi, but it's just I think it's interesting. When Carol Burnett did Sunset Boulevard, that was outrageous. The version I watched, she was doing like Houdini. She was doing like Houdini's daughter, and that was pretty crazy. But she's a personality. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of her personality, but I liked all the people around her. I think maybe I'm not saying I don't like her personality. It's like something grating about her, but that's coming from a modern perspective. Like, I don't know. If I was watching it live, I'd probably get into it way more. It's just a little, it's the distance of time. So I'll give it. If you were to make a movie, what genre would it be in? For me, it would be Western. Ooh, nice. Not enough modern Westerns made that push the boundary and do something new. Yeah, Unforgiven kind of killed it often. They did a lot. I would make, I do like surreal. I like surreal comedy, dramedy kind of, basically is what I would end up making. I am a student of the late 90s. It's so, I feel like I'm probably disconnected from filmmakers today. I feel like a lot of filmmakers today probably get into filmmaking for, wanting to make either a zombie movie or an action movie or a Marvel movie or one of those big, over the top movies. And I got into movies honestly because of people like David Lynch. Like Mulholland Drive was one of those movies that literally like made me say, I want to do this. I want to make something like Mulholland Drive. Another example, one of my favorite movies is called Wonder Boys. If you ever watched Wonder Boys, it's a movie where Howard Pym takes on Peter Parker, and Howard Pym's agent is Iron Man. So literally, and let's see, is the the girl from Fargo's in it too, and then also Batman's girlfriend Rachel Dawes, she's in it too. So yeah, it's basically all the comic book hero characters get together, and there's a plot about writing a book. No, Wonder Boys is actually one of my favorite movies. Back in those days, also Matchstick Men came out. I really liked American Beauty. I know that movie's kind of gotten a lot of it's been reevaluated, not considered as good as it is. I really liked it. But late 2000s movies, a lot of those, Nolan's first major hit, which was Memento. Those kind of movies, in some ways, Kevin Smith's Clerks, although I wasn't that big a fan of Clerks, but I come from that kind of school of filmmaking. I like interesting drama, comedy, dramedy kind of movies. They're not going to be big, unfortunately. They don't make the big bucks, but that's the movie I would make. Jack Ripper said, hell yeah, I love hearing this. Is that what you're talking about, my movie selections, or I don't know? What I know about Wonder Boys is that it's a Bob Dylan song. Ooh. I'm sure it sounds like a Bob Dylan song, but it's... So, I mean, if you want to know the plot, basically, Martin, is it Martin Sheen? It's in that? No, not Martin Sheen. What's that guy from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? His son. Michael Douglas. Yeah, that's what it is. Michael Douglas is a author of he's an author. He's teaching at a small liberal arts college, and he's working on his book. His first book was like a major hit. He's still working on his second book. It's like thousands of pages long now. He just can't stop writing. He has no way to filter it. He teaches a writing course, and in the writing course, Katie, what's her name? Katie, Tom Cruise's ex-wife. is in it, and she's kind of got a crush on him, on Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas is in a marriage, or is he divorced? No, he's single, but he's kind of like having an affair with Dean, who's Frances McDormand, and Tobey Maguire plays like a really gifted young writer in his class, and basically he kind of takes him under the wing, and they have a screwball comedy misadventure. It's involving the dress of one of Marilyn Monroe's jackets. It's very entertaining. Katie Holmes, thank you. Very entertaining. But it's funny. It's also tender and sweet. I love it. I love that film. Isn't it a Tenacious D song? Let's see. What did I miss here? The plastic floating in the wind in American Beauty is eye-rolling. Yeah, it is now. But I think also, part of it, I feel like, in some ways too, when I was watching it, I remember watching it and thinking I don't necessarily, I don't agree with his take on the plastic bag floating in the wind. I appreciate his poetry about it, but it's also kind of a vision of that character. I know one of my friends has this issue. I talk about it's appropriate for that character to say that about the plastic bag because he's in such a deep searching of meaning. Although in the movie, one of my favorite movies nowadays is Not Another Teen Movie, and there is that creepy guy with he's got a plastic bag and he's got video cameras I'm watching. So yeah, but it's in the character. I even remember watching it and thinking I get what he's saying, but it's part of his character to be so weird. Would you ever reappraise Please Accept This Ring or any of your others? Oh, you know how filmmaker you're talking. So I made this short film a long time ago called Please Accept This Ring on Farmville. And most people nowadays don't know what Farmville is anymore. Because I was in the period where I was making a bunch of short movies and just making them one after the other. And I had already made a couple serious short movies. I wanted to make a bunch of shorts just we keep practicing. And I made this thing called Please Accept This Ring. And basically that was birthed out of, we had another director that I wanted to work with, a writer, I won't mention names. They were trying to make a movie, but for 100 million reasons why, they couldn't actually get the script, concept, blah, blah, blah. So we had this location. I'm like, oh, I got an idea. I just threw together the script. And we made this, because I was getting a lot of, back at Farmville was really big. And Farmville, if you don't know what that is, on Facebook, there's these games on Facebook, and Farmville was you could create a little farm, and then you invite your friends to come over and pick the barley, and then you feed the cows, and it's just a stupid game that they would try to get you for microtransactions and all that. So I made this little script basically the guy's trying to ask this girl out, and she's so busy on her Farmville that she doesn't get what's going on, and so forth, so on. So I shot it with kind of technology that was kind of mismatched cameras. Back in those days, I was still shooting with the 35 millimeter adapters. So that's how old that movie was. Would I reappraise it? Don't judge me by that movie. But that's the kind of movie I'd like to make. I'd probably make it better nowadays, though. Because honestly, I'm a way better filmmaker than I was back then. A million miles in front of that. I'd love to make something more like that, though. Yeah, I should. We should make some more like that. I should make some more short films and invite you to tag along and watch them. And see the process of making them. Dang it, that's what we should be doing. So yeah, that's what I reappraise it. There you go. There's your answer. I've gone back. Sometimes every filmmaker will always say this about their films. It's once you made it and you put it out there, you almost feel like you don't want to watch them again because you're so embarrassed about how badly you think they are. And I can watch it that part I didn't like, that part. But I could also say there's some spark of creativity, there's some spark of fun there that I feel like I'm missing in my life right now. I would love to go back to make more films and like that. And maybe I absolutely should. I absolutely should if I get some time, but I absolutely should. How should an amateur shoot a short film set at night? Is shooting during the day and adjusting video and post to look darker a good method? Not today. It's a good question, technically speaking. So the thing I always tell people about shooting night scenes is remember that night isn't about darkness. Like a shot that looks like it's at night isn't about being dark. Although it can be. Although maybe nowadays it kind of stylistically has become more about being dark. I.e., oh, dang, what's that show with Jason Bateman in it? You know what I'm talking about. Chat will tell me. Am I buffering? Let's see. What's the name of that show? Dang it. Ozarks. Thank you. Thank you. So you might watch Ozarks and think, wow, everything's so damn dark. Which is why I actually had to stop watching that show. I couldn't take it. It was overbearingly dark. But a night shot isn't about darkness. It's about contrast. So a shot that's a picture that's a dark shot means you're still fully exposed. You're exposing what you want. It's just the contrast between the bright and the dark part of the image is a lot bigger, right? So if you shoot a picture of somebody out in the day, like everything's well lit, everything's bright. There's not a lot of contrast. But if you go at night and you shoot something like somebody under a street lamp, right? You're still exposing the street lamp. You still see the highlights on their face, but the shadows are much darker. So, yeah, so that's why you want to shoot at night. And Jack mentions you can always tell when it's day for night. I think that's because they never get the contrast right. You can shoot day for night if you can pull it off where the contrast is as deep as a night shot. But most of the time you can't, really, because there's too much, they call it in 3D animation, global illumination. It means the sun's bouncing off the sidewalk, it's creating shadows on my face, so it never looks quite right, you know? The day has the sun, because as Neo says, the day has there's so much light in the day, right? Even if you stopped all the way down so you get the kind of the exposure of a night shot, it's still, because there's so much light bouncing around that you'll never accomplish it. So anyhow, how can an amateur production shoot at night? Your cameras nowadays are incredibly capable of shooting night stuff. They really are. So I would just start experimenting. Now, experiment with lighting. Try out, look up DIY lights. Look up, I really hate those carpenter lights that people used to buy in the old days for filmmaking. I hate those things. But you can get clamp lights, grow lights, put a bulb in there, put an LED now in there, and you can just hang them from a pole or a coat rack or from a shelf or something, and just experiment with lighting. You can do it. There's so much gear now. Your camera is so capable these days too. Your camera is so good in low light these days. You can light things with a small DIY light. You don't need a fancy solar panel. You don't need all that stuff. I mean, you want to buy a couple, go for it, but you don't need it. You absolutely don't. You just use, the industry term is practical. Practical means like this is a light bulb this is a light bulb from a lamp on a set, and I'm going to use that lamp as a lighting from the light. And Rigel says, good example. White foam core is a great bounce. Yeah, you can get white. Go to the craft store and get white foam. If you're even cheaper than that, if you're super cheap, example, I think Filmrite did this. Like they took shower curtains. So if you have an extra shower curtain lying around, just stretch that over. Use that for either you can either use it as a diffuser, shoot light through it, or you can use it as a bounce. If you go crazy, you can make a little wire frame or take a clothes hanger and just a wire one and bend it out of shape and put a T-shirt on there. There's your bounce. Or use it as a flag. There's all kinds of things you can do. Yeah, lighting is an art. I think the John Rando says, and even important thing, remember, the root of the word, photography. That's what we're doing when we're shooting movies. Director of photography. The word root is photo, which means light, and graphy, which means to create a graph, right? To graph or map out. We're mapping out light. So how you light something is intrinsic in how it looks. So anyhow, have fun, man. Though you'll never look at anything the same way once you start like lighting and making films. It's a great, exciting road. That's why I do this professionally. The Back to the Future trilogy and Groundhog Day are some of my favorite movies. Heck, Pixar movie Inside Out reminded me why I love animation so much. Yeah. I'm trying to think other animations. Yeah, I really loved Into the Spider-Verse because it's so kinetic and exciting and interesting. I'm trying to come up with other examples. I loved Coco. That's why I put it on. If you watch my breakdown on Coco, I think it's a perfect movie. Almost perfect. Well, nothing is perfect, right? But it's pretty damn close to the perfect movie. It makes me cry every time. And it's not just like the first part. You know, Up is great, but it's like it's really only the first part that makes you cry. But Coco makes you cry. Like the whole ending is just so freaking tight. Yeah, anyhow. Rio says, or you can just paint everything black. Hey, there you go. You know who else did that? Thomas Edison. Black Maria. Anyhow. Highly recommend Blowout, my personal favorite De Palma film. It's excellent performance by John. I never did watch Blowout. I know of it. It's also one of the movies where they use the split diopter a lot. And I'm going to be on the weird people. All right, so anybody know what a split diopter is? Any nerds in here know what a split diopter? Split diopter is one of those things with film nerds, like camera nerds, really can like it's a real flex to. Oh yeah, I love that split diopter shot in Blowout. I love that split diopter. So basically, what split diopter does, it's a piece of glass that goes in front of your lens, and it's actually kind of cut in half. And one part of the lens is like a powered, and the other is just empty air, right? So what it allows you to do is to focus on two different planes. So you can pull focus on this half of the frame, and it'll be a different focus than this half. So you have, oftentimes you'll do it in like super deep focus where you have basically one person in focus and like the backgrounds in sharp focus as well. But I hate that look. It just looks weird. It looks like a weird split screen to me. Like it screams out to me like, hey, I know what a split diopter is. Like it rarely ever is used to like actually. They used it in Star Trek: The Original Motion Picture. They did that, and that's maybe the only use where I thought like, I could buy that. They used it because in order to shoot the television screens on the Starship Enterprise during the 1978-ish when that came out, in order to view it, you had to set the iris, the aperture to like 3.2. So you had to go really shallow depth of field, or else you couldn't make out what was on the TV screens in the back. So they had to use split diopter so they could see the screens on the computer readouts and then see the characters. I get why they use a split diopter, but like Blowout, I've seen the little split diopter shot from Blowout. It just seems like just De Palma being De Palma, just showing off. That's what it is. Blowout is Tarantino's favorite. I never saw the movie. I just talking about the split diopter shot. Yeah, it looks too distracting. You notice the magic, and you just notice that it's like. I just don't like the look of it. To me it looks like you might as well do a split screen because it looks like a split screen because things are so different. Like, well, yeah, no, that's only because you're talking about extremely like really obvious uses of it. Well, why would you wouldn't use it unless you use it for obvious purposes. I mean, these days you just go with a higher, if you want to raise your exposure and then go with a narrow, smaller aperture, you can get the little deeper depth of field. You can do that. Or just do a split screen. Literally just do a split screen. You know? So, anyhow. The Thing did a split diopter shot with a nice lighting. Well, I didn't notice it in the Thing, so if it worked in there and I don't notice it, then cool. It works. I just hate... Yeah. John also says it's... the blur between the two shots that makes it look fake. Yeah, so like I said, it looks like a split screen. Don't bother. De Palma used split screen a lot too. Have you seen Sisters? No, I haven't. But De Palma's certainly somebody that loves to quote and do things in his movies. Because I was going to show the students Battleship Potemkin, and I was just watching it again recently because you can find a 4K version of it. You know, and then to watch it and like, oh yeah, De Palma really just flexing his, I don't know why he put it in Untouchables. It's just so like call out, but it seems so like look at me, I went to film school kind of a thing. Yeah, no, I appreciate De Palma. I don't love De Palma, but I appreciate him. Oh, I watched MI1 the other night. Noticed those split diopters. Oh, they do the split diopter still in those movies? I didn't see I remember from MI1. Yeah. Inside Out makes me cry every time because I can relate to it so much. The ending happens, and I'm crying like a Rugrat needing a diaper change. Pixar has a very good track record of doing just that. You know, I think that's the same way I feel about Coco, because I can really relate to that. Matthias says, maybe a far greater focus on animation history is a way for you to tell again the film history without. Oh, cool, yeah. Haven't rehashed too much of your previous video. Yeah, I've conspicuously stayed away from animation, haven't I? It'd be kind of cool to go back and talk about like how the different, animation wings, like one of the first the Brontosaurus, the friendly. I just touched on it in the Fox video because William Fox bought that friendly dinosaur one. That's famous, one of the first animations ever made. But to talk about, like what happened to all these, like Warner Brothers had their own little studio, the Fleischer Studios, like where they went and where they came. All these studios had their own animation departments that would produce like cartoons, obviously Disney, yeah, that might be a fun trip to check out. Ooh, my legs are dying. Another question. Oh, here we go. For films with different aspect ratios, do people set their cameras to record that way, or do people crop in for post? I get this question a lot, and here's my answer. I actually told this in my class. In the world of digital, and I hate to be that guy, you need to stay inside the conformed aspect ratio numbers that you are conforming to. So if you're shooting UHD 4K, then you will be shooting a certain aspect ratio or a certain resolution, right? If you're shooting 3840 by 2160 or 4096 by 2160, you have to stay in that file size range. But then you can apply the bars however you want, title bars or pillar box bars, to create whatever aspect ratio you want, right? So, and I get crap on this a lot because a lot of people now say, well, that's the wrong way to do it. Well, I'm sorry, but that's the correct way to do it. I will go down and I keep going down in flames because people always yell at me for this. You should export you should export a picture without the title bars. Well, no, you shouldn't, because I come from the world of broadcast, and you always deliver what you are told. If you are asked for a certain file size, you deliver that file size. Now you can go in and add your title bars to it and create your alternate aspect ratio. Again, it depends on what you're required by your distributor or whoever you're making the film for. But always default to deliver the aspect ratio that you want, or deliver the file aspect ratio you're required to, and use letterboxing or pillar boxing to create the aspect ratio you want. That's what I would say. Okay, so now going back to the question, do they always shoot that? No, sometimes what they do, especially when you see the really wide screen, the 2.39s, they're shooting something called anamorphic. And anamorphic is a lot of cameras these days have a way to shoot a 4:3 image, like an old square looking image, or sometimes it's just a square image. And they put a lens on it that squeezes everything vertically. All right, so they're shooting like a square image, usually maybe 4,000 pixels by 4,000, or just a really high-end square. And then they de-squeeze it in post to create that wide look. And not only does that make for a wide look, or a wide aspect ratio, but it also creates certain artifacts that we kind of associate with epic filmmaking. You see the oval-shaped bokeh, the blurring in the background. They're no longer circles, they're oval-shaped. The focus tends to wrap around an image, a person's face, and also the streaks on a lens will be like this really wide, long, streaking color. So there's a reason why people shoot anamorphic. So I know that gets a little bit deeper into the weeds, but that's how it works basically. I know I probably went a long way down and trying to explain that. So. Oh, there you go. Jack River says, watch Evil Dead uses some anamorphic lens to unsqueezed in some shots. There's an old technique when somebody is having a dream or something, and I discovered this. You take an anamorphic lens and then you rotate it, and it creates this like wobbly look. And I know I've seen that in movies before, so that's how they did it. It's like this weird anyhow. All right, I'm getting hot. It's getting time to get going, but we'll hang out for about 10 more minutes and we'll check out. I like the one in Pulp Fiction. Butch is panting and out of breath. Meanwhile, Marsalis is chasing him. Feels subtle and natural, and the blur is hidden in the corner of the wall. I don't remember that. I have to go back and finish watching Pulp Fiction again. Steamboat Willie vid coming. I was going to do a video about how Disney is not the copyright troll that people think it is, but I just got to sit down and write that one. I'll get in trouble for that. Trouble, unfortunately, on the internet is not a bad thing. Sometimes you do trouble. There it is, Gertie. Windsor McKay's Gertie the dinosaur. Yeah, manages to climb up the Gertie's back in live action and then bow to the audience as Gertie walked her off screen. Yeah. Aha, here we go. You're talking about my other love. John, not a film question. What is your 3D printer? Any recommendations? Okay, so if you want to print, 3D printing has been my hobby and my obsession since I started the pandemic. I started getting into 3D printing, and now I'm kind of obsessed with it. So I have a Creality Ender 5 Plus over there. It's not working right now. I gotta fix some things. I have 2 Ender 3s that I bought because they were on sale at Micro Center. And then that's if you want to print like big things, like props, helmets, swords. My friend of mine right now is working on a Zelda shield, and I'm helping him out with that. We're also doing a Thor hammer, which actually I need to paint. It's over there somewhere. So if you want to do a big print, not much detail, although detail's okay. Something like this. It's called filament printing. So that what you buy large spools of plastic, and it just goes through and it kind of fills out all the details layer by layer. This is filament printing. I would recommend, for a starting person, Creality is probably one of the more popular brands. It's a Chinese company, but it's relatively inexpensive. The products are not bad, but they require tinkering, let's be honest. Prusa is a good example of a higher-end consumer one, but it's like the cost of 3 Ender 3s, so you get what you want. So that's if you want to do that. If you want to do like models that are more highly detailed, say something like this, which is Wonder Woman. This is a sculpt by Mega. This is resin printing. So resin printing, if you want to do like miniatures for D&D and stuff like that, resin is the way to go. Resin is a vat of liquid resin, and there's a UV light. And so you have a little thing that comes down and it stops, and the UV cures a little bit of resin. It pulls up, comes down, cures the next layer, it goes up, and do that about 10,000 times, and eventually you get that. So resin is a lot more messier. It's slightly toxic. If you're allergic to resin, some people are allergic to resin. Thankfully, I'm not. But you can get like hives if you're not careful. So you should wear gloves and PPE and all that stuff when you're working with resin. But you get much more detail, much more ability to do things. Although the base is actually made out of plastic, so you can see the plastic, the filament. So on that front, I have an Anycubic. Anycubic is a brand that I have, although Mars, Elgoo is another. I have the Anycubic, the Photon Mono X, and the Photon Mono. So those are 2 that I use. I haven't printed anything in a while because I've been so busy, but I would like to get back to it. It's really fun. Anyhow, that is about 3D printing. Yep. Yes, props. Yes. Keep it coming, Daddy-O. Bring me all the props. Let's see. I'll give you one of these. I always like this prop. It's one of my favorite ones. Although it doesn't quite feel that heavy for an idol. But you know what? This does belong in a museum. So. This was one of my favorite ones. One of the first things I printed actually was Aladdin's lamp here. It actually holds water. It can hold water. But yeah, this one came out really well. You can see this is filament printing. I printed it in multiple halves, and I printed it standing up like this. So you see a lot of detail in it. But it worked out pretty good. The other thing is painting and finishing and polishing and all that stuff. So. And I'll show you one more. This is my Batman. This one is all filament printer. This is not resin. This is filament. So I think this one came out pretty good. Although, yeah, I would go for it. I think it came out all right. So Batman's probably my favorite comic book characters. He's looking at Jasmine over there. Anyhow. All right. Let's see. I'm going to wrap it up here pretty soon. So let's get a couple more comments before I get going and try to cool off a little bit because it's hot. Saul Goodman, what's my favorite movie? Your top 5. I've kind of gone through this. Generally, I go for like Stanley Kubrick's Doctor Strangelove. Other movies that I really love are from this year is Everything Everywhere All at Once is one of my favorites. It's getting up there to, it might be in my top 5 at this point. Wonder Boy's in there. I'm trying to think of the other ones. Things I would watch, like, just if they just came on, I would just sit and watch. I don't know. I'm pretty open. I just enjoy things as they go. Those, if you were to ask me, those 3 would probably be up in my top 5 at least. Anyhow. All of the major animation studios in Hollywood's golden era could be their own videos as well. Yeah, I know. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to basically do like a video on every Hollywood studio, and not necessarily the animation studios, but the major studios. The problem is, there's not enough nerds that love this stuff the way that you and I both do, I'm sure. So it's like I like the history because I'm a business major, so that's what I like to do. I like to hear about the corporate history. I noticed in video games like Yooka-Laylee, The Impossible Liar, that the tonics that change the game to make it look like a film also affect the frame rate as well as to make it more like a movie. Yeah, I know. Isn't that something? Like I posted the other day about the new Battlefield. It's not a new Battlefield anymore, but Battlefield 2142 or whatever movie, or whatever video game, and the trailer for that movie, or for that game, was in 25 frames a second. So there's so much for high frame rate. Even though animators were treated as second-class citizens, Jack Warner didn't know any Looney Tunes characters. Really? That sucks. The good side is that animation directors had freedom to be auteurs. Yeah, they probably just saw cartoons as like stuff for kids. Huge film nut, not really much about animation, so I love that topic. Yeah, I think I should just probably work on that. I wanted to do a story about United Artists, but I feel like it gets super into the corporate history of United Artists, because United Artists is kind of the template for modern Hollywood. Like that's when, like, they were one of the first to change tactics to become more like corporate modern Hollywood. So that's kind of a really interesting. How do you get from a studio lot like they did in the 30s, right? How do you go from that to the movies they were making in the 70s? It's a huge, like, climate difference. So, did I watch the new Thor? I liked it more than ever. Even though I'm not into Marvel brand. I did not see the new one. I saw it coming. It's coming to Disney Plus on September 8th. So I'll probably just watch it then when it comes, when I can no longer pay extra money for it. Oh God, if I was an executive in Hollywood, what would I change? I don't know. Great question though. So why I think it's a great question, because part of it also is, what can I do to make it where what I want to see change actually affects what's happening. So I'm going to throw in this concept in that. There are some things I do on this channel that I want to see more of. Like, I wanted to see more of the Hollywood histories. Although I love that. I don't know if the population loves it. So if I were to come to Hollywood and say, I want to make more thoughtful movies. Well, I make a couple of thoughtful movies and they bomb at the box office. I'm not going to be a Hollywood executive for very long, am I? So, like, I feel like everything you got to think about in terms of, like, all right, what can I do to get the audience on board with something, but be able to pull it off. You know, Jack D. Ripper says Hollywood needs another Robert Evans, someone that can kind of like has an ear to the ground, but an instinct for what would work and what would be popular. You know, like Love Story. I've never seen Love Story, right? But I know about it, right? But it feels like that's a Robert Evans call. Like, who would think that a movie like Love Story, that chicks would just dig it and bring their boyfriends and they go and see this movie and cry their hearts out and they go, oh, a love story, you know, something like that. Like, what do we have? We don't have that these days, do we? No, it's all like either Marvel super cape shit they call it, or action films. There's nothing in between. I don't know. I don't know how it would change Hollywood as an executive. I have no idea. It's a great question, though. It's great to ponder about. Like, I don't know if I'd have the power to change stuff. I don't know. Maybe what we're doing now is changing it by being on YouTube. Maybe the era of Hollywood isn't as powerful as it was. I mean, as a young man, I was thinking about moving to LA and trying to play the Hollywood game. In some cases, I'm thinking about it now, you know, like, well, you know, I should be where the action is. If I go to Hollywood, I'd be around actors. I'd be around, you know, people that are wanting to make projects and stuff like that. But part of me is also like, yeah, but do I want to make that stuff? Do I want to be the lackey for everyone else's ideas? I don't know. I'm teaching a class, you know, about video production. I kind of tell the kids, I say, you know, Hollywood is one thing. It's only a small slice of filmmaking. Hollywood is only a tiny sellout. Exactly, sellout. Hollywood is only a tiny slice of motion picture making. There is so much out there. Like what we're doing now, what we're doing on YouTube, what we're doing, make short films on YouTube. I don't know. Make television shows. You know, even that's not, you know, if you want to take just Hollywood filmmaking is just one small piece of the pie. There's so much out there that we could be doing. And maybe the era of the big blockbuster movies is really at an end, and that, you know, maybe there is a tiny window for things like, you know, Top Gun Maverick that can do really well, 4 quadrants. But maybe we need to focus on trying to create new and more interesting, more other ways to engage people with motion picture that don't necessarily involve, you know, 9-digit budgets. 9 digits? That's $1 billion, right? Yeah, okay. 8 or 7 digits in their budget. Anyhow, on that note, while I sweat the last bit of water out of my body. I didn't mean to do that. Stop that. Stop it. Stop it. That's what happens when John's so damn hot he can't tell he's clicking on. There we go. All right, on that note, guys, hopefully we'll see you next week. I'll try to do it on Tuesday. Real quick question, answer your question. What do I think of The Northman? Wasn't crazy about it. We can get into that later. All right, guys, we shall see you later. Thanks for hanging out. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.